I thought I was picking up the webcam. Ready to start? Because everything is on. I just haven't heard from Chris yet.
So. Did he join or?
We live everywhere, so we might as well get started.
I'm about to say, how did this one live on Instagram?
Where to go?
I guess he's just going to join in when he wants. Are we ready?
All right. Welcome to another episode of Above Average Black Man. Yours truly, Chris Pender Sr.
Devin Pender here to remind you to like, follow, subscribe, share, and comment. Kind of was waiting on Chris to do this part, but we inspire the community, uplift the community, and try to show a spotlight of positivity. Did I do good with his part?
Yeah, you did. You got to speak a little louder, man. You talking in your little your inside.
My bad.
But another great episode, man. I'm sure Chris is traveling, but he has 2 minutes. I'm sure he's going to join in. But what we're going to talk about tonight is we're going to talk about one. Got to make sure I say congratulations to my boys. You know, we're NFC champs, about to go to Super Bowl, take care of some KC stuff.
Don't let them hear you say that. You know, they're looking for ammo. So KC stuff. You know.
Don't matter. When you're the best, you're the best. When you're the best, you're the best. But I definitely want to talk about a serious thing. One thing that's been troubling me is we all know what happened to Tyree Nichols, in Memphis. So here we are again, having this conversation again.
Yeah, it's definitely. I don't know if you saw the full video. I saw the full video. It's very heartbreaking, especially to see how they were like manhandling him at the end of it. You could tell he's a little he's disoriented. You already pepper sprayed him, and it seemed like that is just very heartbreaking.
This is Chris.
As Chris is, I'm saying he's a minute late. But yeah, like I said, just a very tough situation. And for it to be people that look like us, on the law enforcement side, to be the ones that dealt the hand is just, for lack of better, it's just very unfortunate.
Well, I think, and I want to make sure, because I've been having this discussion in 2 ways. One, I want to make sure we don't get caught up in that, the perpetrators look like us. It's important. I'm not downplaying it. But here we are again, though. Another African-American male, just taken out, with so little regard for life. And yes, there were people who look like us who did it, and one who didn't look like us, who actually took part in it. And that's sad, and we'll get into that later. But just, how do we get to this place where we just such a disdain for people we don't know just because of the color of their skin? That's the scary thing. The scary thing, this guy was, and if you look at the first video, the traffic stop doesn't look like it was warranted, but even the officer he was so aggressive at the stop, get the F, he was just so aggressive at the beginning. It just kind of set the tone for the whole thing.
And it's just all for a traffic stop, I feel like, never I've been in traffic stop. It never really goes to that extent, which is what's the underlining reason to why they did it, when you first saw it, what did it look like to you when you first saw it?
Well, I mean, when I first saw it, it was, I had to look at it. I honestly had to look at it 2-3 times because when I first saw it, I couldn't believe the brutality of it all. I couldn't. I was awestruck. I kind of, not that it justified it. I found myself looking for a charger with the windows tinted. Something that would make you think they had a reason to believe this guy was a menace. Not that that's right, but I'm looking for things. I'm thinking this is gonna be some big 6'2", 275-pound guy. Yeah, that they felt threatened. It was none of that. And I'm thinking, okay, at some point when they realized that he was no threat, that they were going to lighten up.
And yeah. First, let me say, when I heard his background and like how he usually is, like he doesn't look like a skater kid,
Well, that was just the sad part about it was he's a skateboarder. He's a skateboarder. I don't know any violent skateboarders.
I don't know any violent skateboarders.
I just don't. But I think the thing that really, took me back was the lack of value for life. And we're talking about the Tyree Nichols thing. We'll get to the black people did it, but this continual, it's almost like it's a continuation of African American males' life just don't matter. It's like we can do what we want to do, we can take it away, we can control it, because, and we'll look at it from, I'll start the police aspect of it, because we have power. And when I looked at it, the second thing I noticed about it was, or the third thing was, it was almost like they did it because they knew they could get away with it. That was the scary thing. It's like they did this thing, like, and like no shame. No, they weren't trying to hide it. They weren't. I mean, they were verbally saying things. I don't know if you picked up on it, because there's two things that stood out to me as we get into the conversation. One, that they kept saying, "Get on the ground," when they were holding them down the whole time. Show us your hands, when they were holding his hands the whole time. But then I was watching something, the police experts saying they were doing that because they were trying to get people to listen to them and not watch the video. And then the second thing that was amazing to me, and I would love to hear your thoughts on this, the second stop. Did you notice nobody came outside? I've never seen that in my entire life, that not one person came outside to see what was going on. So either they must have had the whole neighborhood intimidated, something was going on.
And since Chris just joined in, your hair looks nice, by the way.
Yeah, I was checking it out, man. He like, he look like he ready for some rebellion.
But and seeing,
so many mixed emotions about it.
Well, what were your initial thoughts when you first saw the video in totality?
So for me, I have not watched the entire video. I think this thing is an approach in which, or the lens in which I had, is that it's like another one. I'm tired of it. It's like we would have watched the videos and came to a lot of the same conclusions. I just heard you say, like, a lot of these videos are starting to be the same now, where it's like the cops are just putting out the standard jargon. Move, like, don't move, get your hands behind your back, like, and clearly this man is on the ground. Don't resist. Like, it's constant over and over again. And it's like I didn't want to watch the video because it is a little bit traumatizing in a sense. It's like, and I already know the end result. And I was used to even kind of share that image, because I hate that it's a reoccurring thing, and that was also in my mind. And I'm like, again, not another one. And like I'm about to watch something that I've seen 1,000 times now. And at this point for me, it's like, man, what do we do? Like, what can we do? And like, kind of taking it back now, where it's like, all right, it's like almost a song and dance. Our political quote unquote leaders are going to come out and say all of these things that they feel are right and justified, but at the same time, we never see any action or anything changing. Like, I'll commend them for swift action on arresting the police and pressing charges, but at what point do you feel like this is going to stop?
See,
like I don't feel like it's going to stop until we honestly like have some type of reform in this system.
and this is like a little side note, but like I'm piggyback on what you just said. Like they
I
took
can't
Swift.
hear you guys now.
Well, we got mute right now, so I can't stop. So, like he just said, speaking on like us on like them taking swift action, different things like that. When I saw that, and again, I was glad that they're moving pretty swiftly with this. My whole thinking was, all right, so what happened those other past times where we saw similar instances, except when it was Caucasian officers and the black male.
See,
they didn't move this swiftly at all with that.
I don't want to get caught up in, and I hear you. Your mom and I had this discussion, kind of got a little interesting because I think everybody's getting caught up in that aspect of it. Huh?
You said it got interesting. I'm like, what does that mean?
Oh,
Yeah, go to your corner.
Yeah, we kind of disagree because I understand that aspect of it, but I think people are getting so caught up on that they're forgetting about what actually happened. You so caught up on that it was black cops and they got treated differently than the white cops. It was wrong. It was heinous. It was horrific. That boy's mom don't care if they were Chinese, green, purple. And I think I agree with you. And also what you got to look at is towns are different leadership, to Chris's point. But that tells me it can be done. That tells me that this whole wait till we get to the federal level, we got to get federal laws passed is a bunch of hocus pocus. That people at the grassroots level can control the narrative. That's what I learned from that. And granted, now we know going forward, it should happen like that across the board. But I don't want us to get distracted that we get into how the white bad cop was treated different than the black bad cop. I want to make sure we're careful that we stay in that narrative because my issue is, again, another young black male's life was taken and somebody felt like it was okay. Somebody felt like I can do this and there's going to be no ramifications, not just once, but twice. And not even that, the fact that the way you hold them up and somebody came and baton them. Hey, baton them. Then the fact that they finally did something to the EMTs, everybody around, they stood around.
And that's what I was going to say too, to take that point even further, is that the EMTs, the fire trucks, they did nothing. They came, they saw this man struggling, and just like ignored to do their job. And that's where a part of it a lot of times where it's like talk about systematic racism doesn't exist. It's clear as day right here. Because you can put anybody of any color in those positions, kind of to your point that it don't matter what race they are. It's like they're abiding by the system that they're trained by.
We, as people of color, I think sometimes we try so hard to assimilate that we take on the wrong characteristics. And so you have a group of people who became a part of a racist system, which is systematic. We know that systematic racism is kind of core to that decision. So they figure how I gotta fit in. I gotta treat my folk the same way. That's how I'm going to fit in. That's how I'm going to excel. That's how I'm going to get my piece of the American dream, so to speak. And the sad part about it is it happens every day in this country, and there's no accountability. That's what hurts me the most is that you could do that and think there's no accountability. The EMTs, who show up, who's supposed to save this guy's life, and they got fired, rightfully so, they just stood around. My thing was, and they got another officer today. All those officers who arrived and did nothing, they should be charged. Because on the side of their cars says protect and serve. Every last one of those cars. And this is a guy who didn't commit a crime. Wasn't like he robbed a bank. Not that anybody should be beat. Wasn't like he killed, raped. You pulled him over for a traffic stop. And before you got on, I was telling Devin, not that is right. I'm looking for a Dodge Charger with tinted windows. I'm looking for something that would make them think this guy was just bad.
You know what? Like that's how much the stuff is kind of indoctrinated in us.
I need you to speak a little louder. I need that basketball voice.
It's indoctrinated in us where we start to kind of even as a community are like, all right, what did you do? Did he run away? Was he being aggressive? Like, what kind of car was he driving? Like, it's that deep where it's like, man, we start looking at it from that type of lens to see, like, why would they even trip?
Right. That's what I was trying to figure out. I was trying to figure out what would make you think this guy was dangerous. I'm knowing mine because the original stop, when the guy first went to the car, get the F out the car. His first interaction with this dude was like gangster. There was no, the whole, and then the rest of the dudes, they just join in with the same kind of attitude, the same aggressive attitude, and I'm like, wait a minute, and then coming to find out they can't even validate the traffic stop now. But for a traffic stop, and I'm thinking, so when I said that, I'm trying to figure out what in their mind set them off on this guy, this little 195-pound guy, a bunch of 6-foot-something guys. What the not only the initial stop, but to chase him, and beat him to death, and then to hold him and say baton him. See, so my issue is that that right there, that's like slave mentality. That's like, you want to help me catch the other slaves.
Or it's a lot of ego.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, how dare you run from me type thing. And like you said, it's that slave mentality.
But it's funny you should say that, because one of the reporters said somebody told her off camera, that's what they tell you. If you run, that's what you get. So it's so funny you should say that. That's what somebody said.
That's legit the mentality. Is that it's like, I mean, it's funny because they are quote unquote supposed to be evolved, but they feel like they're so much higher.
But that's the problem, Chris. Why? What empowers you to think that you could do that to a black person? Because they don't do that to Caucasian people. They do it to black people.
They've been doing this without any repercussions. They protect each other. It's the good old boys network. Like
but only when it comes to people of color, though.
Yeah, and that's the unfortunate thing. But still, that's the case. There, it's like they felt like for the longest time they could do whatever they want to us, and nobody's going to say anything.
But this, we talked about. I mean, part of it is we got to start holding local politicians accountable. We got to stop talking about Biden and Kamala and federal. We got to start holding local politicians, because that's who run the police force. That's who run these police departments. We got to start holding them accountable, man. When folk come out to get our vote, what are you going to do about this? How are you going to handle this? What is you going to be response when something like this happens in our city?
And that was actually a point I wanted to make a little bit ago. Is now that they actually fired these officers and taken swift action, like, what are we going to do to hold the police chief, or like you said, people that are really in charge of this thing? How do you hold them accountable?
Well, it has to be something, because for as quickly as they dismount, if that was just the only guys in that unit who acted like that, you don't take it apart that fast. So I guarantee you more complaints are going to start coming out, because you just don't take a unit and tear it down in 24 hours if that's the only thing that happened. So somebody above them does know. Somebody above them who are handling these complaints, who are handling things, they do know. And again, my humble opinion, you're quiet because it's happening to black people, poor black people. So who's going to make us think about it? Who's going to make? And then what we say is what the officers say, which the video clearly, dismisses this. He put his hand on my gun. I mean, that's kind of like the Caucasian version of I was afraid for my. I mean, that's what you hear now.
You know what I think, though? I think it's part of education on our part on the law, and also like we just want to have to start suing everybody, like from the top down. Because then when you put a constraint on your pockets, and they feel that type of pressure, then some type of change is going to happen. Everything is ran by money in this country.
And that's what they're trying to get down from the federal level, that you could go after. Because what happens when you sue, you don't sue the individual, you sue the city. The city and the police department ends up paying. So the individual actually goes unscathed. He kind of walks away. Yeah. I mean, to me, and
some individuals like that are in charge, they need to do it too.
No, but I think that is a direct violation of every civil right. I mean, come on, man. You holding them, 3 guys holding them, tell another guy to baton them, and the other guy walked about a good 10 yards, so he had ample time to think about this.
He was getting Superman punched.
They kicking him in the face, and it's being filmed.
Taser.
So I just, to me, I think again it goes back to the value of a black man's life in this country. And I'm not trying to make this white, black, because I want to talk about the black on black crime too. I like why are we all of a sudden, not all of a sudden, but it seems like, and I know I'm feeding into the firestorm, especially because of social media and stuff now is more prevalent. But why is it so that our lives just don't have value anymore?
But again, I think to a point that I made earlier about how we're kind of indoctrinated into this lack of care for Black life, because again, we make all these excuses in the world for it, and we don't do anything about it. But we'll sit here and talk about it all day, just like any other race does and will. But we never like take a stand and start with trying to change what's in our families, in our communities, and branch out from there. Like we blaming everybody and everything, but we don't necessarily do anything with ours.
Well, but let me ask you a question, because I do the community men on Mondays, and our topic on Monday was it justice or just us? And what I meant by that is it justice, or are we so isolated in our churches and in these groups that it's just us, that we don't care about what we don't get involved in what happens outside our circle? Is that where we are now, that we don't come together as a community and say, like, that's Memphis, but that could have been North Philly. That could have been the Bronx or Harlem. That could have been somewhere in California. I mean, what is almost like, because it doesn't happen in our backyard, we just unconcerned about it. And that's the part I don't get. So justice, like we talk about justice for all, or we just got back to it's just us. As long as we look out for our little circles. Is that where we are?
It sounds like we're at the just us period, with the, people are, I'm just going to mind my business. If they don't have me, I'm not going to say nothing, or anyone I know, or that not snitching, or what they call stop stitching or snitching, or different things like that. I feel like that feeds into the just us mentality. Like, we're really only worried about our individual selves, where back in the day, you worried about yourself and the person that looks like you, your neighbor, the person that lived down the street.
I mean, I agree with Devin. Like, there's definitely shit that said this, and it's probably been like this for quite some time. It's just a little bit more heightened now because there's cameras everywhere, and just I feel like it's a little bit more prevalent. But it's been just us for a while. The community has been destroyed.
It's kind of funny because I agree with you. But you know what made me take notice of it? Because it happened so close to MLK Day. Because I spoke at an event for MLK Day, and I always go back and I read his speeches and his quotes, and I'm thinking like, wow, we have digressed, not progressed, to the point where we're now just us. We're isolated. If it's not happening to me, I can't relate to it. And in 2022, 1,176 African American males were killed by police officers. 24% was African. I'm sorry. There were 1,176 individuals killed by police officers. 24% was African American. That's crazy. That's a fourth. That's like almost a fourth.
And we don't even think of them much as a population.
But I think, and stats says we're 1.3 times more likely to get killed in a stop. So my point is, why is it not concerning to the masses? Why is it? Because we live in the burbs. But it could happen out here just as easy. It could happen in North Philadelphia. We were talking about when you got stopped. Mm-hmm. And that whole and I could hear, because he definitely had his phone on. I could hear disrespect to the cop for no reason at all, and it was a black cop for no reason at all. Just because he can. So.
You talking about the situation when we got pulled over?
No, he got pulled over.
No. This was like. What was like 2016? Remember, I was riding around. I was like not that far from Temple on my way home. This officer stopped me randomly. By the way, turns out my registration was expired. That's another issue for another day. But I was treating this officer with respect, and I ended up calling Dad just because like I just felt like I had to call Dad at that point.
Had somebody on the phone.
Yeah. And like Dad said, he heard the guy like being pretty disrespectful, and like I'm just trying to talk to him, like trying to figure out answers. Like, listen, like, is there a way you could just escort me home or something so you can make sure?
And I'm telling Devin, what happened was, at that time, everybody had cars, and your mom just, she forgot, the registration, and it wasn't like he was driving a Cadillac or a Jaguar. It wasn't like he was furthering the drone, and I get it. You're doing, first of all, why you stopped him, which is really profiling, because you had no reason to stop him. I'm not even going to get into all that, but you did, and then second of all, why are you treating him like that? You know, I can hear him in the back. I'm like, yo, just, you know, and I can hear him in the background just being almost like trying to goad you into doing something. Almost like I'm trying to get you to say something smart. I want you to do something. Yeah, and he's in the heart of North Philadelphia, down there off of Broad and Susquehanna. So it's not like you know, so you purposely targeting a group of people in that area. Right. And so yeah, and let me say this. I've been around cops my whole life. My father was one, my brother was one, brother-in-law, you know, used to play ball with the state troopers. So this is not saying all cops are bad, and I'm not saying it. But what I'm saying is, to your point, Chris, you know, at what point do they start checking each other? And you know, like I felt so bad because the next day I saw somebody sent me a video, these two young black cops, I don't know where they were, and they were so sad and dejected because they said, you know, that's not all cops, but tomorrow all cops got to put their uniforms on. You know, don't judge us like you judge them. And it's terrible that these two young that you got to make that video. And so my point is, you know, how do we, you know, why don't we hold local politicians accountable? When somebody's come to your church, to wherever they come to, and they give you all these campaign promises, how do you want to clean this up? What are you going to do if this happens on your watch? I need to know because I'm not voting for it. The second thing is, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, well, to that point, I was just saying, like, earlier when I was talking about putting money, like, pressing these people, I think one reason why they probably feel so emboldened that they can do whatever they want is because they do have this protection from the government in a sense where as individuals, they can't be held accountable. They are starting to be now for prison. But again, like if you start putting fire into all these dudes that's like being corrupt like this, I mean, I think that's what you should help.
But it goes back to how corrupt people learn how to manipulate the law, because it wasn't put in place to protect them from wrongdoing. You know, it was put in place to protect them from frivolous lawsuits. You know, not, you know, for you commit a crime, now you can't be sued because no. But it's turned into that. But it's turned into that because the powers that be, people in these unions, people who defend these people think that's okay. You know, and they think it's okay. And the sad part about it is, you know what? Yeah, you put your life on the line, and I understand it. Yeah, you know, you protect and you're supposed to, I understand. But you know that when you sign up, that does not give you the right to violate other people's rights. When you joined, you knew that was part of the job. So I don't want to hear that, you know, because of this, now you're getting this. Just, you know, I mean, and it's
yeah. Some cops are like this, that's their last resort.
Yeah.
They're not really doing it to protect and serve. They're cowards.
Mm-hmm.
Like someone we couldn't cut it and go into certain areas. So it's just like, that's like their way out of doing something. They're a part of something. And like I really do feel like that. You can see it, man. Like how some people act and how much they just want to be a part of something so bad.
And I agree. I didn't, you know, and that's what I thought when I looked at the video, because your mom watched it several times, so did I. I'm thinking to myself, like, how could you be proud of that? How could six stout grown men beating this guy? And you holding them? You don't even give them a chance to defend themselves. You're holding them while you're hitting them and kicking them. Your boys are holding them, so you're not even giving them a real chance to defend themselves. And you're armed to the T. And how could you be proud of that? And then the thing that bothered me was with the video, how dare you plead not guilty? I'm thinking, yeah, two of them got on bail because they could afford bail. And they, this is, I mean, come on, man. Really? But the union's going to, what makes it worse, Chris, they're going to defend them. Somebody's going to defend them. Mm-hmm. Somebody's going to try to smear this young black guy's name, not that that had anything to do with the incident. You know, he was a skateboarder. I don't know any violent skateboarders. I'm not saying they don't exist.
They make some connection that he might have been talking to one of the officers' wife or ex-girlfriend or something like that. And to me, that is outlandish, even more absurd than I think that's premeditated.
There you go.
That makes it worse.
They premeditated. And let me ask you a question. Don't it take two people to talk last time I checked?
Yes.
And if it's his ex,
yeah, I'm about to say it's a wrap. I'm sorry.
But if that's true, it makes it worse because now it becomes almost like a gang. You're not even a cop. Now it's like a gang because you got to beef with somebody. So now your boys got to beef with that person. That's the very people who you're supposed to be protecting us from that you're taking on their characteristics.
It's crazy you said gang because it looked like at the end it looked like they were
They
jumping.
did. They were
Like,
kicking them in the face. Dude ran back and came and kicked them. And the thing is, like, even when the EMTs come, you treat animals faster than they treated him. If that was a dog or animal, they're treating them. The SPCA is on it.
They didn't touch him or
No. 20 minutes.
They didn't get him in an ambulance.
And then when you see his face, it was obvious. It did, come on. It's not like once you looked at his face, you knew this dude needed to be treated. It wasn't like he had internal or body bruises you couldn't tell. And then I heard somebody say today, well, they all should be fired. Just like they finally, the white guy whose hand you saw the whole video, they finally got him today.
Yeah.
Finally. But he should have been the first one.
One line to be like, what about this guy?
Yeah.
Like, that's absurd to me. Like, that it took people to follow. They need to feel the pressure from us in order to actually follow through on these things.
But this goes back to what I said, because everybody was focusing on the black cops and the black guy. Nobody was focused on total justice. And I get it, but nobody was focused on total justice. This is a model that they should be able to prosecute and get stuff out faster. But at the same time, I don't want people to get distorted because it's a bad black cop is being treated different than a bad white cop when, that was horrific. That was crazy what they did to this dude.
It's due to the system. It's like, how can you, and I think that's another part to kind of dive into and talk about too, is like you said, people getting hung up on it was black cops. Why do you arrest the black cops so fast? Like, are you kidding me? That's what your main concern is here, and not the loss of black.
Ask that boy's mom, did she care what color those cops was?
Yeah, that's what I really feel.
I mean, and that's what people kill me. Does it matter? You burying your son, man, and you're not burying him because he died in a traffic accident. He died in something that was just, he was targeted and purposely killed. Is how do you, I mean, I don't think you ever prepare to bury your children, but something like that is like, that's something that can be controlled.
Yes.
That's something that somebody's made a collective decision to beat another human being. And this should be like every church, every Christian, white, black, Asian, should be up in arms over this, man. This is cold-blooded murder. All these pro-life people and all these pro-life people talk about pro-life. Well, his life matters too. And I think we've come to the point where, unfortunately, we're numb to this. Even us as Christians, we get numb. We see this stuff, we read it, and we go out, we protest for a couple of days. We pull in Al Sharpton and Crump because they're the poster child for every time something goes wrong. So they're for and then it goes away until the next time.
He spoke at the funerals,
But that's the routine. I know, but and I'm not against either one of them. But they pull those same two people every time. They don't speak for me. They don't speak for the black community I come from. But you pull the same two people and you talk about it for a couple of weeks, and then it goes away until the next time it happens. Why aren't those same two people leading something for change?
I think that's another kind of topic of discussion as well.
Yeah.
It's like people that they look to or put in these positions that are black leaders, quote unquote.
Yeah.
Like, at what point do we realize? Like, I'm tired of seeing Al Sharpton.
And I'm going to go on record as saying we have nothing against Al Sharpton. So this virus goes viral, and we know he's done a lot of good things for civil rights. Yeah. But that's
you only see him during this occasion when he should be out here doing so much more.
Well, and see, this kind of leads me to my next point, because the other thing we were talking about was, and me, I got to be the rebel rouser, was, when do we stop teaching our kids to survive and teach them how to live? We so busy telling our kids how to survive in the system, we're not telling them how to live. How to work to change the system. How to actively get involved, become advocates for yourself. And stop being the victim. Because when you're in constant survival mode, you become the victim.
And it's like, again, kind of one, educate ourselves. Two, that's like empowerment there, like where parents have to kind of, like you said, stop living in survival mode, and we need to start getting to this point where we can thrive. Like, I think one thing that you raised us all on is there's nowhere on this earth where we do not belong. And I really walk in move and anywhere that I can go with that type of confidence, you know. And I think more of us need that. And sometimes I think that's what is holding us back, is that we're waiting for somebody to save us.
Yeah.
And it's got to be us.
But I think this is see, and I think that's the core issue, you know, or at the core of the issue that we have, is that it's two-part. One, we're waiting for the next Malcolm X, Martin Luther King. Hence, people that don't look like us keep giving us leaders. Who should be our leader that we fall into? And the second thing is, we're not teaching our kids to get out of survival mode. I get it. There's certain things you need to do when you get stopped, and I told you guys that. But after that, politicians, African-American politicians, African-American lawyers, they need to be championing his cause. You know, just like in church, you telling everybody to put your hands in plain sight and all that. Black politicians and black lawyers should be out there saying, and then you call your lawyer. You get attorneys involved. Let them know you have representation. What are they doing to change it at the local level? Who's holding the local level accountable? Instead of we saying we waiting for the president to get involved on the federal level. Let me tell you, those folks, just like in Shaq, when Shaq and Charles Barkley, they can't relate to what we're talking about. So naturally, their first point of views was, oh no, that's because they're oblivious for this. They're oblivious to what we're going through.
Well, first, Shaq is a cop.
No, but he is. But at the same point, he should know better than anybody else that is two set of books that we're playing by. Mm-hmm. So the point I'm making is though, so when I hear guys like that, they validate the wrongness of what's happening in the system because they look the other way, or they come up with a reason why, or they defend it. And my thing is, if I'm looking at a video like I saw with Nichols, nobody could defend those. You can't sit here and tell me about what they did there's no way around it. And that's not the time to come tell me, okay, but they're good cops. Yeah, that's like when the guy drops a winning touchdown pass and they lose the game. Ain't nobody talking about the other good receivers on the team. He dropped the ball. They talking about him. Yeah. Yeah. But I think, this goes back to what I said, justice or just us. But I think this goes back to what I said. I think a lot of people get to the point where, and I guarantee you some of them there thought, you know what, I'm not going to buck the system because it's not happening to me. I'm not involved in that, so I'm not going to get involved. So therefore, I'm going to not do my job because my job is not just to police the people who are doing wrong. It's to police anybody doing wrong, anybody committing a crime. But I think, but that's the just us. It's just, and there's a play on words, justice versus just us, because I think a lot of times it is just us. I live over here, and I've heard people tell me we don't have that in my neighborhood. Yeah, but your kid's not staying in your neighborhood. It is going to come. That could have been, anybody's kid in that car. Somebody could have been in the car with him. His kid could have been in the car with him. That can happen to any kid in any inner city and across the country.
And I think another point that I mentioned earlier is probably why I haven't watched this video, because it has happened to other people in similar situations where it doesn't matter who's in the car, their girlfriend or spouse, their kid. Like it's like they just kind of, as soon as they see black or brown, it's spread.
Now, let me ask you guys this: do you think there wasn't as much outrage as it typically would be because it was black officers and like black on black crime, different things like that? Do you think that's why there wasn't really a big outcry about it? In our community, you think people would be used to seeing stuff like that?
I think part of it's that, because some people cannot have a conversation without it being racism. And there are some people who don't want to admit to what Chris talked about earlier, that there's systematic racism. And you can be a part of it and not be white. You can get pulled into that and not be white. And people don't want to deal with that aspect of it. I think the other aspect of it is, this happens so much, man. I mean, it's almost like, here we go again. It's like every other month we're having this conversation. And if you go back to even take police out of the matter, go back to when you were in college, Chris Trayvon Martin. This has been like a regular occurrence every year, 2-3 times a year. So, I mean, over a hoodie, and he had his hand in his pockets. I mean, this goes on and on and on and on and on to Aubrey, the guy just running, jogging. He was jogging the wrong neighborhood. This goes on, and this covers almost.
Those aren't even cops. Like,
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. But it's the value. It's the devalue. Well, if a police officer, so-called person in authority, does not value a certain ethnic group of people, of course, he's giving other people who are not in authority permission to hold that same frame of mind. It's okay. The cops don't like them. The cops are killing them. So if I do it, it's okay. The person who's in charge, the authority, who's supposed to look out for us, and I'm not saying all cops, I'll make it abundantly clear, but those who are off the chain and doing stuff, if he's doing it, people are that's like giving somebody permission to do it because he's doing it. Oh, he's getting away with it.
Another reoccurring thing that's seen throughout this too, and other situations with cops, is that once they kind of national news and they get in trouble, their reports come out there like, oh, they have prior offenses.
Yeah, I just saw that yesterday. But you said earlier, they look out for each other. And if you say something, Devin talked about it, you're a snitch. You're a rat. You're a sellout. All those things come into play because you're doing the right thing, which is no different from a gang.
What about the things that we don't know?
Oh, yeah. What with that group?
Like, how much is really being swept under the rug?
Chris, man.
Like, that could have been the first time they did something.
Yeah, when I saw the video, Chris, they were so comfortable. That wasn't the first time. The way they beat that boy, if you look at this video, Chris, that was not even close to being the first time. They weren't even hesitant. They didn't even care that our body camera. They didn't care about any of that.
There's cameras everywhere, pretty much.
They didn't care. They were under a police camera on the pole. So, I mean,
I have a question for you. Like, because even when I kind of, in my mind, always kind of think about this situation, like Rodney King.
Yeah.
When that first happened, like, how did you feel kind of the country took it in that instance versus kind of how we take it now?
Well, I think, and Rodney King is interesting because I remember being in corporate America. I remember sitting in the room in the back of the cafeteria eating breakfast, watching a video, and they were beginning to burn down Watts in different neighborhoods. And I remember some of my Caucasian counterparts coming in who I thought we were friends, not realizing I was back there, the comments they were making. He deserved it for something else he probably did, and let it burn. Those people don't know how to do. I'm just listening to all these races, all this bias come out, and then somebody realized I was in there, and it kind of shifted. But I remember how I felt, not just seeing it, but seeing how people I respected and thought that I could count on responded to it. It was like being punched in the stomach. It was like literally being punched in the stomach. Like, yo, I work with you every day. I thought we had this relationship, and now I see we didn't. You have a relationship with who you think I should be based on what you think I should be, not on the realization of who I'm connected to and who I possibly could be. Because somebody said, oh, well, he's not from around here. Yes, I'm from North Philly. The second thing was I was working for a company, and I loved this job at the time. And I never forget the O.J. Simpson trial. And this company never shut down for anything. They shut down for the trial because of the results of the trial. And all these Caucasian people and I didn't want to go in there. Oh, come on, Chris, you got to come in. You got to see. Come on. And I'm like, I don't want to. No, come on. I'm like, no, come on. They just, you got to come in. And I know why, because people see the lynching. We're going to see the lynching of the black man. So I'm in there, man. And when he got off, Chris, man, these people were crying and stomping their feet. I can't believe it. So now I'm feeling uneasy. Like, they're going to take it out on me. But they were, because see, but it taught me another lesson. It taught me, Chris, that, man, as people, as much as we say we believe in the judicial system, it's only when it works in our favor that we do. 15 innocent people could be found guilty, and I'm okay with it because it doesn't impact me. The minute it gets close to home, we got to change the whole system. The system sucks. The system is not fair. He literally got and also told me those people that you see every day, they're not interested in justice, man. They're not. It's their perception of the way the world should be. So, like, when I hear somebody say, make America great again. And you want to go back to the 60s. You want to go back to the 50s where black people just, shucking and jobbing and submissive and we didn't have any rights. That's what you mean, make it great again. And I hear that. And then if I look at now, if you're a black Republican, how do you think that's okay? If you're a black Republican, how are you not thinking that, man, that could be my son?
At this point, Dad, I really don't have faith in either party.
Well, I don't either. I'm not making it about, I'm saying because they fighting against the legislation at the federal level. And you know how I feel about it. Got to come back to local. But I'm saying to myself, as a black man with sons and a grandson, that every time I see it, it's like a punch in the stomach, man. As a black man who has friends, who have sons and grandsons, as a black man who's coached, who got a lot of kids out there who mentored.
The Democratic Party will lie to your face and tell you that they're going to do something.
Well, they all do. Yeah, they all do. They all do. And that, but this goes back to because we don't ask tough questions. They come in, they kiss a few babies, they tell us they're gonna put a steak in everybody's pot, a rose garden in everybody's driveway, and a white picket fence in everybody's neighborhood, and we vote for them.
They tell us what they like what we think they want to hear.
I agree.
Every time.
Joe Biden goes to the black church up there singing like the songs, and then
he the boss.
You don't see or hear from her.
Yeah.
Now she want to attend the funeral and act like, oh yeah, we got to do something.
Well, I'm not disagreeing. Like, okay, I say the same thing about, and again, it's going to be a soundbite probably. But my thing is like, okay, Al Sharpton, if you want to be the leader, why aren't you in the rest of these communities on a year? Crump, why aren't you in the rest of these communities on a year? All these men, all these innocent people in prison need representation.
There's no cameras there.
Yeah,
but this goes back to my point: justice or just us. Martin Luther King laid it all on the line, whether you like or disliked him. And if you go back and listen to his speeches, especially I Had a Dream speech, it wasn't just for him, and it wasn't just for black people. It was for black people, but he dreamed that white people and black people would get along. He dreamed that this country would have some kind of unity. He wanted his kids to be able to play with other kids. It wasn't just about him. He wanted us to be equal, but he wasn't talking separation. For some reason, we've lost sight of the dream. We think because we've officially assimilated, some of us, that we arrived. And I don't understand. We think because I live in this neighborhood, it doesn't happen in my neighborhood, is okay. It's kind of like, I say this all the time. If you look at the NFL and then the NBA, when Kaepernick went down, man, you got about maybe two guys who supported him. Together, okay, what you gonna do to us? You may be able to work on one of us, but you're not getting all of us. Yeah, but it's no different than NFL. If you look at all, like in Prescott, him and I forget the receiver they had, the wide receiver had, and I remember when Jerry Jones came out and said, nobody on this team better not kneel. But better not kneel, because I'll cut them. None of them kneel. The receivers out of football now, and Dak, he's like the most hated cowboy right now.
It's a little bit of fear. They shaking up. It's like, oh, what am I going to do?
Yeah, but Chris, he ain't.
Like, what's more important to you?
But it's not Chris. Jerry Jones was not getting rid of Ezekiel like Dak Prescott. He wasn't getting rid of all them black guys. He talked all that smack because that's his money.
If you like, what is more important to you? Like, is this sense of feeling comfortable because this white thing?
Well, but this can be the last segment. This can be the last segment. I think a lot of professional athletes, and this is my humble opinion, not all, a lot of them think because they get treated differently as athletes that they're actually viewed differently in society until something happens. I think they earnestly believe, like I look at Jalen Hurts and somebody asked me, a few people, well, why is it that people give him a hard time? People, because right now you can't find anything wrong with him. Mm-hmm. And they struggle with that. He speaks well, he dresses well, he conducts himself well. He's a well-mannered young man. So you can't attack his character, you can't attack his integrity, but you can't attack his leadership. So you make up stuff to do. Chris Sims, Phil Sims, he's not this, he's not that. I'll take Daniel Jones over him. Come on, really? And this guy has a voice, and that's one of the dumbest things I ever heard. You know, he's the 8th best quarterback, 2nd worst quarterback. He's ranked number 8. You know, out of the quarterbacks who made the playoffs the last couple of years. Why? Because you can't attack his character. You can't attack his character. You can't attack his image. So you attack his livelihood. And that's what a lot of professional athletes are afraid of. They're afraid of because I'm viewed different as an athlete and they take it as they are different. Not realizing that, no, you're just a black guy who entertained a bunch of white people right now. When that doesn't happen anymore, you just like them. But until that part gets fixed, I mean, just like when DeMar Hamlin.
You got so many more people that are in positions where anybody asks you to change the world. Well, you can certainly address the issues and world that's around.
But fair, DeMar Hamlin, that would have been a whole different story if a handful of athletes would have went out there and prayed. Just a few. People would have been, oh, there's no place for that in football. I can't believe you stopped the game. You should. But because so many millionaires did it, what they gonna say? It was nothing they could do. It was nothing they could do because everybody did it. Both teams came out there. The goddamn whatever his name on ESPN. It was nothing they could do. But had that been 1 or 2 people, nobody wants to see that. Nobody wants to see it. That's all you would have heard. That's the infringement upon my religious right. But that's what I said. Yeah. That's what I said but had it not been so many, they would have probably persecuting dude.
There would have been a lot more people like Skip Bayless talking.
Yeah. You know, but then like you said, then what Skip Bayless says. You know, he showed you a lot of white people think when it comes to black athletes, which I take it back to why black life is devalued. His main thing was they need to finish the football game.
They got somebody to back up for him. Like,
yep. But see, athletes needed to hear that because that's how many people view them like that.
He was not fortunate, he was one of the ones that actually had a microphone and he could catch him. He had a platform to be that ignorant, but it was probably so many people out there.
And it's not like all those people saw him literally pass out on the field. Who wants to go play right after that?
Yeah, but if you don't understand, if you don't value somebody, you just plug and play. If you don't value somebody, first of all, it's a reason why somebody's starting and the backup is not playing. So it's not always as simple as you got a backup. It's a reason why.
Plug and play.
Yeah, but he's a human being. He's a person. You know, he should have been viewed as a person first, not a football player. That's a human being who's dying. But I think it feeds into it because again, it's the lack of value of African American males. I think in sports is not, you know, I guess people don't view it like that, but it's the same. And I brought it up because it's the same example. You know, but then, you know, the Eagles game, and I gotta say this, it's unfair. What? How? It's unfair to block Brock Purdy, whatever his name is, got hurt. You know, we take things. That's what I'm saying. The difference is, so it wasn't unfair that DeMar Hamlin had, got hurt,
or Lamar Jackson.
It's so the point I'm making is there is a disparity in how athletes, and I think some athletes. My point is they view themselves as being different. You know, I'm not a part of that. You know, I'm above that. And Chris must be exaggerated because it's not really that bad because I've never been a part of it. I've never been exposed to it. So it just kind of goes on. And I bring it back down to local politicians. It's the same way because until it hits home with them, they don't see the magnitude of it. They don't know what it's like for you to be afraid for your kid to be out. You on pins and needles because your kid is out driving at night. You know, when that home. Go ahead.
It's like this scary reality that all it takes is come to being at the wrong place at the wrong time, the wrong person. And you never know when it's going to be or who it's going to be. That's kind of the life that I feel like as black men that we kind of live with at this moment.
But I thought the movie of the Central Park 5,
Central Park, yeah.
I thought that would kind of shed a little light on things, how somebody could just say something and make up evidence, and take lies from people, but that didn't change anything, man. People still don't get it that can happen to you any day in this country. that some police officer, not all, some police officer could deem that I don't like the way you look. I'm going to make sure that you're guilty. You know, people forget that Donald Trump took out a full-page ad about killing them and all this stuff, and they voted dude to be president.
Yeah.
So this is a dude who openly showed you he didn't have a value before they even went to trial. And he didn't print a retraction. When they got off, he didn't put something in the paper saying he was wrong. He apologized. So again, you know, it's just, there's like this, the black male life has been devalued. It's almost back to slavery where, you know, we just sold them off. Like today, I heard somebody talking about Independence Hall. I went to a Memorial Day for Dana at the Federal Building, and it was cool. And the guy was talking about, you know, Independence Hall. But what he forgot to talk about was right there on the corner, it's a block on the ground where they sold slaves, literally 50 yards from Independence Hall. They put them off the waterfront. They put them off the boats and sold them right there on, little like 50 yards from Independence Hall.
And then, I mean, again, it's a reoccurring thing throughout our history, throughout this country, that they very much like devalue our lives.
And it's sad.
You Philadelphia, you got the Move bombing. It happens in Florida. It happens in Georgia. It happens in California. It's everywhere.
Mm-hmm. We've contributed so much to this country, man, as African Americans, and we've had to endure. You know, like I hear people talk about the Holocaust, and it was horrific. But the Holocaust didn't happen on this soil. What happened to us was Americans doing it to Americans. You know, it's not, you know, and it was wrong. The Holocaust was dead wrong. So I don't want to mess that up and make people think that, you know, I'm for it. But I'm saying, like, you know, here, this is, you know, Americans doing it to Americans. You know, even when they brought Africans over, that happened on this soil, on this country right here. This wasn't in Germany. This wasn't in Europe. In this country right here. It was done. And I'm not downplaying it because the Holocaust was horrific and they deserve everything they get. But I'm saying slavery was just as bad. What we're seeing right now, the young black men are being killed, that's happening right here in this country. That's being done by people we pay that's supposed to protect and serve. That's being done right now in this country by people who supposed to have power. And I think we have to, you know, one, and I say, because I know we got to close, we got to hold local politicians accountable. You know, two, and I know I get in trouble. Churches got to be more vocal, man. You know, if we gather on Sunday, man, I wonder how many churches preached about this on Sunday, but they won't talk about this anymore. They talk about what happened to that young man in a brief part of the service, but that's it. That's it.
So I just want to add, just quick to your point where you're talking about, you know, our local politicians. Do you think people in our community know who their local politician is or care to know?
No.
Well, because now there's a different level of accountability when you know something. And I think the fact that, which is an excellent point, the fact that you asked that question, the fact that people don't know, just kind of feeds the idea that they don't care.
I mean, we get the feel how people just run by on these fluff campaigns, and like we kind of just, our votes are already locked in.
Yeah, I agree. And we vote for who we like. I like Chris's hair, man. You won't get my vote, man. You know,
like the votes already locked. Oh, he is Democrat, he's not Republican. You know, that's honestly how we vote. We don't vote and hold people accountable to their ideas, what they actually going to make happen.
Well, we got 5 minutes.
We're just buying into the same rhetoric.
So we have 5 minutes, and you guys are a lot closer to the age of a lot of the young men this is happening to. So you guys can, you know, your closing thoughts.
Well, I'll just go first real quick. What I would say is, like my father said, know who your local politicians are. And I would also say, know the law. Know the law in and out. So, you know, if something does happen, you're able to protect yourself. You know something, at least the basics that could later on help you out, help your family members out, help your friends out. So that'd be my little tidbit right there.
We have to do a better job as Black people, as coming together, sticking together in just the face of anything that's wrong. It don't matter what color these cops are. in your community, if you see something that, you know, isn't right, like we have to either come forward and say something, or again, like it blows my mind a lot of these times because it's like, man, these people out here sometimes that are doing things, that's your cousin. That's somebody's cousin. That's somebody's son. That's somebody's daughter. Like, there's so many like degrees of separation that we're right there, but you can easily step in and say something. But to Dad's point of this mindset of like just us, like we need to broaden just us and make it all black people, not just us.
Yep.
People that's in my house, in my vicinity. When you were making a point of like churches and any other community or religious people, like I think, man, take the school, take our youth there. Why are we allowing for like waiting for the police to come in? These outsiders, honestly, coming in and pretty much doing whatever they want. Like it starts with us in our community starting to take it back and stop relying on the government to come and save you. Or I just feel like it really starts with us, man. We got to step it up, like, because it's not going to happen if we waiting for the man to come.
I agree.
Change that.
Well, I mean, I think, you know, since there's 3 minutes left, I think there's several things we need to do. One, we need more than just the black race to get involved, because if you go back and look at the civil rights movement, it didn't really take off until Caucasians, Catholics, different, you know, Jews, different, you know, ethnicities, different religion factions got involved. And I think, you know, we need to really get involved collectively, because hate, you know, and you see it. They're shooting in synagogues now and just went into the Asian community. You know, hate doesn't discriminate. It doesn't. So I think there has to be a coming together. You know, we agree that, you know, we can stop the bickering and the infighting long enough to get to the bottom of this, man. You know, to come together and say, what can we do collectively? I think too, as African Americans, man, we need to figure out how we can create enough unity to channel our dollars. Because I can tell you right now, if black people say we're not going to Chick-fil-A for a month, you better believe Chick-fil-A be out there like, yo. Yeah, you know, I shared this with a group of young men Friday. You know, Nike and Colin Kaepernick. You know, Nike didn't back Colin Kaepernick because, you know, they stood with him. You know, if you hear them tell the story, what happened was, yeah, they said, hey, they realized when people were calling for them to get him off the commercials and all this stuff. You know, dude say, I looked at the video. And those people that's burning sneakers, they burning sneakers from 5 years ago. You know, he said those people burning stuff, they burning stuff off the rack. Them people who support Colin Kaepernick, yo, our guys going in the back and getting them sneakers. They the $200, $300, $400 sneakers. So it wasn't like they stood with Colin Kaepernick because they agreed with him. No, they knew, yo, he ain't gonna hurt us. He gonna keep making us money. And I think we get it twisted sometimes, don't understand the power of economics. You know, you better believe if we said we're not going to Walmart for a month, we're not going to KFC. You better believe if black folk got together and said we're going to take, and not just black folk, people who we all have a common cause, especially African American. Yeah, just said we're going to pick an industry and we're not going to, you know, we're not going to buy from them for a month, you know, and see history. Martin Luther King, the boycott of the bus services. You know, they didn't give in because they thought, you know, they all of a sudden got this revelation about, you know, fair. No, they gave in because it was hurting them in the pocket. And I think we have to understand that and begin to use that. Our pro athletes, they got to do a better job of coming together, man. You know, they got to do a better job of, you know, and there's some like, you know, I think LeBron does a great job of giving back to his school, you know, Ohio, and there's a bunch of those guys. There's a bunch of those guys. But they also, yeah, but they also, the cities that they play in, they could take over. You know, they got together and said, yo, we all going to put $5,000 in a pot and we're going to adopt a school every year. You know, to them guys, $5K is not a lot of money. You know, they could be involved, you know, or you know what? You know, we're going to take $5,000 and, you know, we're going to build, you know, some kind of place that these kids can go. You know, or we're going to invest in, we're going to take $5,000 each and we're going to invest in some kind of, you know, some nonprofit, something to work with these kids. You know, that has to happen on a larger level than it's happening right now. And there's a lot of athletes doing great things, don't get me wrong, but they got to come together and work together too so they can help solve the problem. Because right now, everybody doing their own thing. There's no unity in it.
Say athletes, because you got other logos and this
Yeah,
before I
but-
went to-
The only reason I said them because unfortunately they're an easy target. Because you kind of know what they make. I know. I'm just saying that's the only reason I pointed them out because they're kind of easy. Yeah.
Yeah. It needs to be like a community thing. Like
Yeah.
all of if you're in a position
But
where
it's
you
yeah.
or which he does great things too. I
Yeah.
know that. But
So
that's
it's
just an example. You got Dick, you
About
got
two black
Master, artists.
well, and Devin had a point, and I meant to bring it up sooner because we're past the 8 o'clock hour. At the same time, we're celebrating 2 black quarterbacks playing the Super Bowl for the first time. We're still dealing with social injustice. For the same time, the highest level of football, we got 2 African American males, both with impeccable character and integrity, playing in the Super Bowl against each other, but we still dealing with another black person being killed. So as high as we think we climbed, it's always that reminder out there that we still got work to do. But we thank you guys for tuning in again. Above Average Black Men.
Like, follow, subscribe, share, comment. Above Average Black Men on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram Live. We're on
Spotify.
Podbean, we're on Spotify. Here we're pretty close to Apple Music. We're out there.
Yeah, we gotta get. I gotta get. It's a shame because I gotta get us on Apple.
Nice. Definitely again, man. Appreciate everybody that's tuning in.
Definitely.
Above Average Black Men. We'll be here to empower, inspire, uplift the community. Make sure you out there doing your part.
Got it, man. All right, we are signing off. Hold on a sec, Chris, because I want to go over something real quick while we signing off, man. Kill the Facebook one. Can you get it from over there where you are?
That's it right here.
Touch